The Demon King Zahhak. The tale of Merdas and Zahhak. Long ago, in the land of the Arabs, there lived a kind and just king named Merdas. He was a pious man who feared God and ruled with fairness. His generosity was unmatched. He owned vast herds of animals, including cows, horses, goats, and sheep, and freely gave milk to anyone in need. The people adored their good-hearted king. But Merdas had a son named Zahhak, whose heart lacked his father's kindness. Zahhak was ambitious, restless, and prone to evil thoughts. His wealth was immense, with 10,000 horses adorned with golden bridles. Known as Bivaras, meaning Lord of 10,000 horses, Zahhak spent his days showing off his riches rather than using them wisely. One morning, a mysterious man appeared before Zahhak. It was Eblis, the devil in disguise. Eblis spoke sweetly, winning Zahhak's trust. "Promise me you'll keep our conversation a secret," he said. Zahhak agreed, curious about what Eblis had to say. Eblis whispered, "Why should your father, old and frail, continue to rule when you are strong and capable? Take his place. You deserve to be king." At first, Zahhak hesitated. The thought of harming his father troubled him. "I can't do such a terrible thing," he replied, but Eblis pressed on, manipulating Zahhak's ambition. "If you refuse, you'll remain a mere subject while your father holds power. Follow my plan, and the throne will be yours." Reluctantly, Zahhak agreed. Eblis devised a wicked scheme. He knew the king Merdas visited his orchard each morning to pray. Under the cover of night, Eblis dug a deep pit in the orchard. When Merdas arrived the next morning, he fell into the trap and met his death. The kind king's life was over, and his throne was left to his unworthy son. Despite all the love and wealth Merdas had given him, Zahhak betrayed his father and became complicit in his murder. As a wise man once said, even a lion does not shed its father's blood. But in Zahhak's case, evil ran deep. With his father gone, Zahhak seized the throne, placed the royal crown upon his head, and declared himself king. He ruled over the people, handing out rewards and punishments as he pleased. Seeing Zahhak's growing power, Eblis returned with more sinister advice. "If you obey me, I will grant you dominion over all the earth. Men, animals, birds, and even fish will bow to you." And thus began Zahhak's dark and tyrannical reign, a rule born from betrayal and fueled by the devil's deceit. Eblis makes himself into a cook. After helping Zahhak claim the throne, Eblis returned in another disguise. This time, he presented himself as a humble and talented young cook. "If the king accepts my service," Eblis said, "I will prepare meals unlike anything you've ever tasted." Intrigued, Zahhak welcomed the cook into his palace and gave him complete control of the royal kitchens. At that time, people ate only simple foods with little use of meat. Eblis changed this, introducing dishes made from the flesh of birds and animals, feeding Zahhak rich, meaty meals. The first dish was a simple one, made from egg yolks to strengthen Zahhak. Impressed, Zahhak rewarded the cook generously. "May you live forever, my king," Eblis said. "Tomorrow, I will prepare food that will nourish your entire body." The next morning, Eblis served a dish of partridge and pheasant meat. On the third day, he presented chicken and lamb kebabs, and on the fourth, he prepared veal cooked with saffron, rosewater, wine, and pure musk. Each dish amazed Zahhak, who was dazzled by the cook's unparalleled skill. "Ask me for anything," Zahhak said, "and it shall be yours." Eblis replied with feigned humility, "I desire only one thing, my king. Let me kiss your shoulders and rest my face against them. As a sign of my loyalty." Zahhak saw no harm in the request and agreed. As Eblis kissed his shoulders, he vanished into thin air. But something horrifying happened. 2 black snakes grew from Zahhak's shoulders, twisting and writhing like living creatures. In panic, Zahhak ordered the snakes to be cut off. But no matter how many times they were removed, they grew back stronger, like branches of a cursed tree. Desperate for a cure, he summoned the wisest doctors in his kingdom, but none could help him. Finally, Eblis reappeared, this time disguised as a learned physician. "Your Majesty," he said, "these snakes are fated to be a part of you. Cutting them will only worsen your plight. To keep them calm, you must feed them. Prepare meals of human brains, and the snakes will be pacified." Zahhak, blinded by fear, followed this sinister advice. He began ordering the deaths of his subjects to feed the monstrous snakes. Little did he know that Eblis's true goal was far darker, to rid the earth of humanity itself. Jamshid's reign comes to an end. Once a powerful and revered king, Jamshid ruled Persia with divine grace, his far shining brightly over the land. But as time passed, pride and folly consumed him. He turned away from wisdom, and his connection to the divine dimmed. The harmony of his reign gave way to chaos. Across Persia, rebellion spread like wildfire. Petty kings rose up in defiance, each claiming the throne. The people, once loyal to Jamshid, grew discontented and sought a new leader. Their search led them to the Arab lands, where they found Zahhak, a tyrant with a serpent's visage and a reputation for terror. Hailing Zahhak as their new sovereign, the Persian horsemen invited him to claim the throne of Iran. Zahhak accepted without hesitation, moving with the swiftness of the wind. With armies of Persians and Arabs united under his banner, he marched on Jamshid's kingdom. Surrounded and outnumbered, Jamshid saw that fortune had abandoned him. Desperate, he fled, leaving behind his crown, throne, and all the wealth of his empire. For 100 years, Jamshid wandered in exile, hiding in grief and darkness, far from the reach of Zahhak. But even in the remotest corners of the world, he could not escape Zahhak's pursuit. Eventually, Zahhak found him on the shores of the Sea of China. Without mercy or trial, Zahhak had Jamshid sawn in two, striking fear into the hearts of all who heard of his fate. Thus ended the reign of Jamshid, who had lived for 700 years and brought both good and evil into the world. His throne, his glory, and his divine favor all were swept away by time. For such is the nature of life. The world offers her wine and honey to calm your fears, her sweet voices to charm your ears, but just when you believe her promise is true, she strikes the fatal blow and betrays you. The reign of Zahhak. Zahhak ruled for 1,000 years, spreading fear and tyranny across the world. His reign was a dark era where virtue was shunned, justice was silenced, and demons danced openly in celebration. The wise lived in hiding, while evil ran rampant, and goodness was spoken of only in hushed whispers. Among Zahhak's many crimes was his treatment of Jamshid's family. Two of Jamshid's sisters, Shahnameh and Arnavaz, were taken captive. These noble women, trembling with fear, were forced to serve Zahhak. He twisted their minds, training them in dark magic to suit his wicked purposes. Each night, Zahhak's servants brought two young men to his palace, sometimes peasants, sometimes nobles. These unfortunate souls were killed, their brains prepared as food for the monstrous snakes growing from Zahhak's shoulders. The land mourned as countless lives were sacrificed to sustain the tyrant. But even in these dark times, two noble-hearted men, Armail the pious and Garmail the perceptive, plotted to subvert the king's cruelty. They became cooks in Zahhak's palace, hoping to save lives. Each time two victims were brought before them, they devised a plan. One man would be spared, while the other's brain was mixed with sheep's brains to deceive Zahhak. The rescued men were told to flee to the mountains and plains, far from the king's reach. Month by month, the cooks saved 30 lives. When their numbers reached 200, Armail and Garmail provided them with goats and sheep and showed them a remote place to settle. These survivors became the ancestors of the Kurds, who to this day live far from cities, cherishing their freedom. Meanwhile, Zahhak's cruelty only deepened. He violated every law of kingship and religion, seizing whatever he desired. If a warrior had a hidden daughter of great beauty, Zahhak would accuse him of consorting with demons, have him killed, and claim the girl as his slave. His reign knew no bounds of morality or mercy. Zahhak sees Feraydun in a dream. One night, Zahhak, the Serpent King, was sleeping beside Arnavaz, one of Jamshid's sisters he had enslaved. As he slumbered, a terrifying dream consumed him. In his vision, 3 warriors emerged from a grand palace, but it was the youngest who caught Zahhak's attention. This man was tall and cypress-like, radiating a divine brilliance. Armed with an ox-headed mace, the warrior advanced boldly. Zahhak watched in horror as the man struck him with the mace, flayed his body, and bound him in chains. With a yoke placed upon his shoulders, Zahhak was dragged to the towering Mount Damavand as a crowd followed, jeering at his plight. The terror of the dream shook Zahhak to his core. He awoke screaming, his cries echoing through his palace. Servants rushed to his chamber, and Arnavaz, trembling, begged him to reveal what had frightened him. She said, "You are the ruler of the world. Men, demons, and all living things bow to your will. Surely no harm can reach you here. Tell us your secret, and perhaps we can help you find a solution." Zahhak, still trembling, described the dreadful vision. Arnavaz urged him to act, summon astrologers and sages from all corners of the realm. Have them interpret this dream. Learn the truth of who threatens your throne, and make your plans accordingly. Fear serves no purpose. The king agreed. As dawn broke, spreading light across the mountains, Zahhak called for the wisest men of the land. Once assembled, he recounted his vision, his voice laced with desperation. "Tell me the meaning of this dream. What fate does it foretell? Who will claim my throne, my crown, and my life? Answer truthfully, or prepare to die." The sages were paralyzed with fear. Whispering among themselves, they knew the truth, but also understood the peril of speaking it aloud. For 3 days, they said nothing. On the 4th, Zahhak's patience ran out. He threatened them with death if they remained silent. At last, a bold and wise man named Zahhak stepped forward. Though his heart pounded with fear, he spoke the truth. "No man escapes death, my king. Many great rulers have sat upon this throne, only to pass their crowns to others. Your fate is no different. Another man will take your place. His name is Feraydun, though he is not yet born. He will grow strong, like a fruitful tree, and rise to challenge you. One day, he will strike you down with his ox-headed mace and bind you in chains." Zahhak's face darkened, but he pressed on. "Why should this Feraydun hate me? What have I done to him?" Zahhak replied, "The seeds of his hatred will be sown by your own actions. You will kill his father, and he will thirst for vengeance. A sacred cow named Barmea will nurture him as an infant, but you will destroy it too, adding to his fury." Hearing these words, Zahhak collapsed from his throne in a faint. When he awoke, he ordered his men to scour the earth for any sign of Feraydun. Restless and tormented, Zahhak could no longer eat or sleep, and the brightness of his reign dimmed under the shadow of his looming fate.